Welcome, all Boston sports fans. This is Bosox Talk, and my name is Jake Ignazuski. You can call me Jake Iggy, or Iggy for short. And this podcast is presented to you by Boston Sports Report. And every single Wednesday, I am going to be talking about the biggest sports topics surrounding the Boston Red Sox, and also bringing up some interesting topics that I think a lot of Red Sox fans would be really interested to either listen to or just think about. And yeah, I am very excited to start this podcast. And just to give you a little bit of a background of myself, I am a ginormous Red Sox fan. I would actually consider myself very similar to the Jimmy Fallon sort of character in Fever Pitch. I am just so obsessed with everything that goes on around the Red Sox, and every move that they make, every game that they lose, every game that they win. I just feel it throughout my body. I have a huge emotion and passion for this team, and I'm really excited to start this podcast with you guys and really just sort of talk about all the different stuff that is surrounding the Boston Red Sox. So just to start off, what has been going on so far through the offseason for the Boston Red Sox? So they fired Dave Dombrowski at the end of the season and decided to make a really smart move by hiring Chaim Bloom, who used to be the vice president of baseball operations over at the Tampa Bay Rays. And he has a track record of really turning around farm systems with the Rays and being able to pick up really low-valued players and being able to get a lot of upside from these players with still being able to pay them a very low amount. And in my opinion, this is a great person to run the Red Sox front office, especially after we had to deal with Dave Dombrowski's win now, let's just obliterate the farm system sort of mentality. And what we have been seeing so far of this offseason is pretty much a blueprint of kind of what we expected of Chaim Bloom to do so far for the Red Sox. It's just, quite honestly, I'm a little bit disappointed on how quickly things have been moving. Now, we signed Jose Pariza to a $3 million deal, a great replacement, in my opinion, for Brock Holt, who, in my opinion, will get around $5 to $6 million in free agency for his versatility, for him being a very productive utility player. So Jose Pariza coming in as a very low risk, in my opinion, high reward player that could do the same exact thing that Brock Holt has done for the last 4 years for the Red Sox. And then they also signed a guy in Martin Perez, who is a very productive left-handed pitcher who has been about mediocre, in my opinion, through the last few years, but in the first half of his career was very productive. And even last year, we started to see some upside from him. So that's why we saw Chaim Bloom go out, grab that number 5 starter that, in my opinion, could really help the Red Sox out in the back end of that rotation. But it really begs into question, will they trade David Price now that they have 4 left-handed pitchers and only 1 right-handed pitcher in that rotation? And all those question marks are just swirling around all the Red Sox fans' heads. Will Mookie Betts get traded? Will David Price get traded? What will happen to help the Red Sox get under that threshold? And that is all that I am going to be talking about over these next few months leading up to the season. So as a Red Sox fan going into this new year, there is a little bit of uncertainty. We don't know what is going to happen with the bullpen. It's still in the same exact, very unreliable and quite embarrassing state that Dave Dombrowski left it after last season. And the rotation has a lot of question marks. Will Nathan Eovaldi be able to come back to form? Will David Price get traded? And what will we be able to see out of Chris Sale after he had that injury at the start of September last season? And then we also go into what is going to be happening at first base. Mitch Moreland and Steve Pearce are both gone at the moment, and they're both free agents, and the only viable option is Michael Chavez. But Michael Chavez is supposed to play second base, right? Because we have no other second baseman other than Jose Pariza, who, in my opinion, I don't really know how reliable and really how much trust I'm going to put in this new acquisition that the Red Sox just got to be our starting second baseman. And so it's been very frustrating looking at all these different moves that all these different teams have been making for the first baseman on the free agent market, of guys like Travis Shaw, Justin Smoke, CJ Cron, and in my opinion, even a guy like Maikel Franco would have been a really interesting pickup for the Red Sox. Even though he's a third baseman, has been a third baseman his entire career, he's got that build to be able to play first base, and he also isn't that great of a defensive third baseman in the first place. But we saw all these guys get around $6 million for a salary. You know, Travis Shaw got 4, Justin Smoke got 5, CJ Cron got 6, and Maikel Franco got 2. And that just makes me scratch my head like, Heim, like, do you see what these teams are doing? You see how smart these moves are, and we need these guys. And if you're trying to not spend a lot of payroll and really be able to make very good valued moves and low risk, potential high reward pickups, you know, these guys seemed like perfect people to sign. And now if we're looking at the first baseman market at the moment, we're looking at guys like Matt Adams, or even just bringing back Mitch Moreland for the best viable options for the Red Sox. And then you could even say, bring up that Greg Bird would be a really interesting gamble of a, you know, comeback player of the year, a low risk, potential high reward player that the Red Sox would be able to sign. And especially in Fenway. Fenway's got that left field that people are just able to pull the ball right over. And you could even say the same thing about right field as well. And first base is a perfect position to have the stereotypical power hitting, scary in the middle of the lineup hitter that the Red Sox, in my opinion, just have not had since guys like Adrian Gonzalez and Mike Napoli. And those stereotypical guys, in my opinion, are guys like Albert Pujols, Jim Thome, Todd Helton. Even though those guys played around 10 years ago, 5 years ago, in my opinion, that is still the persona of the first baseman in the league at the moment. And so this is going to put me on my first segment that I am very excited to start, which is the position needs over the last decade for the Red Sox. And with this segment, I am going to be talking about what has been going on in the first base position over the last 10 years with the Red Sox and what has not been going right. And in my opinion, how would they be able to fix this for the future? So I want to start this topic in 2009. And we start off with Mark Kotsay, who was traded from the Braves in August 2008. And he then signed with the Red Sox at the start of the 2009 offseason for a 1-year deal. But then in February, he underwent a back surgery to remove a displaced disc and was said to not miss a significant amount of time, but ended up not playing very well throughout the season for the Red Sox. So they decided to make a move for Adam LaRoche from the White Sox. And this prompted them to designate Kotsay for an assignment. And Adam LaRoche only played 6 games for the Red Sox and hit 1 home run with 3 RBIs and had an average of .263. And interestingly enough, he was traded to the Braves for Casey Kotchman. And this move was made because the Red Sox wanted to be able to cut that payroll and believed that Kotchman was going to be a lot better pinch hitter than Adam LaRoche and be able to be slotted into that first baseman spot a lot better. And so Casey Kotchman started off his first game with the Red Sox hitting a 2-run home run off of Jabba Chamberlain. What a way to start off your Red Sox career, especially in the very pressure-driven city of Boston. And then Kotchman hit around .218 with 3 doubles and 1 home run with 7 RBIs in 29 games. And this prompted the Red Sox to trade him to the Mariners for Bill Hall. And then the Red Sox wanted to go in a whole nother direction on first base and decided to make a big move for, in this time, was one of the best and most dangerous power hitters in the MLB in Adrian Gonzalez. And he was traded from the San Diego Padres to the Red Sox for Casey Kelly, Anthony Rizzo, and Raymond Fruetes. And so this really was an interesting move, and you can look back at it as maybe one of the moves that the Red Sox could, regret for the time being, just because if you look at some of the players that they traded over, like Anthony Rizzo, the Red Sox would have been crazy if they had Anthony Rizzo right now at first base. But, the Padres weren't smart enough, decided to release Anthony Rizzo, and then the Cubs and Theo Epstein decided to pick him up a few years later. But going back into the Adrian Gonzalez and Red Sox conversation, he decided to sign a 7-year contract extension with the Red Sox at the start of April, worth $154 million, and that would go into 2018. So Adrian Gonzalez went off during the 2011 season and was actually selected in the 2011 All-Star Game, along with teammates from the Red Sox like Josh Beckett, Jacoby Ellsbury, David Ortiz, Kevin Youkilis, and John Lester. And interestingly enough, Gonzo hit a home run in that game and was responsible for the only run during that game. And he actually came in second in the home run derby and tied the most home runs. It was a record for the most home runs in the final round of the home run derby with 11. And then this prompted him to be the cover of MLB The Show 2012. So that just shows you how productive Adrian Gonzalez and how scary he was as a hitter during 2011. And when the AL MVP voting came out, Gonzalez was 7th, Jacoby Ellsbury was 2nd, and they both lost to the Detroit Tigers ace Justin Verlander. But during that 2012 season, Adrian Gonzalez had a little bit of a dip in his stats, and in 123 games, he hit 300 with 15 home runs. And with the way that the Red Sox's position and their direction was going, it just didn't seem like a great idea to keep Adrian Gonzalez on this team, especially after the demise that the Red Sox had in 2011. If you remember the whole beer, buffalo or fried chicken sort of situation with Josh Beckett, John Lackey, and the absolute demise that the Red Sox had during September, where they weren't able to make the playoffs with that very talented team. And so this prompted Ben Cherington to trade Josh Beckett, Nick Punto, Carl Crawford, and Adrian Gonzalez, along with $11 million in cash to trade to the Los Angeles Dodgers for James Loney, Ivan DeJesus Jr., Alan Webster, and 2 players of Jerry Sands and Ruby De La Rosa. And so this made James Loney the first baseman for the remainder of the 2012 season, and he played 30 games for the Red Sox and only hit .240. And then after that season, he decided to sign a 1-year, $2 million deal with the Rays. And going into 2013, the Red Sox wanted to go into a new direction for first base and really sort of keep that same sort of stereotypical power-hitting, big, scary first baseman. And they decided to go out and pick up the top player at first base in the 2012 free agency in Mike Napoli. And Mike Napoli agreed to a 3-year, $39 million deal with the Red Sox. And interestingly enough, during a 6-week period, the status of his contract was up into question, because during his physical, it showed he had signs of a hip issue. And the Red Sox are always very cautious during these physicals because they've had so many issues with them paying these players in immense amount of money, and then it's just not working out because they have tons of injuries throughout their contract. And especially if it shows during a physical right when you sign a guy that is injury prone, that makes the team a little bit scary. So Mike Napoli came to terms with the Red Sox on a 1-year, $5 million deal with incentives that would make the deal worth $13 million. And interestingly enough, during that 2013 season, Mike Napoli struck out for the 178th time, and he passed the Red Sox franchise leading record in strikeouts for a season in Mark Bellhorn. But Mike Napoli went off during that 2013 season, and especially to be able to help the Red Sox win that World Series in 2013. And he had a crazy home run off of Justin Verlander in the 2013 ALCS to be able to help them win that game 1-0. And, he really had that great chemistry in the clubhouse with Johnny Gomes, with David Ross, and they had that whole get beard sort of mentality, and that whole excitement around the Beards and the Red Sox just really helped them propel to that World Series because of that exciting and sort of childish culture that they had. And it was really fun to watch during that time. And this prompted the Red Sox to re-sign Napoli to a 2-year, $30 million deal in the 2014 offseason. And unfortunately, Napoli dealt with a ton of injuries during this season. He broke his finger in earlier this season. He returned it, but then the finger problems started to really sort of plague his playing time. He also had sleep apnea as well, which took him out of the lineup for much of the season. And he only played 119 games, but he was still able to hit 17 home runs. And so when you really think about these sort of stereotypical first baseman, power hitting first baseman, you see them hitting around 20 to 25 to 30 home runs, especially when a guy only plays 119 games where he's missing around 40 of those games and he still hits 17 home runs. That's something to look back on and be like, wow, that was still a pretty productive season. And then Mike Napoli went into 2015, only played 98 games, hit 207 with 99 strikeouts and 13 home runs, and only driving in 40 RBIs. And then it just really showed that his defense wasn't there anymore. And it's interesting how the Red Sox moved him to first base because all throughout his career, he was a catcher. But during this last season, it just really showed how inconsistent and how unexperienced he was at first base because he was third in first baseman errors with 7. And then during 2015, during August, the Red Sox decided to trade him back to his former team of the Texas Rangers for cash considerations and a player to be named later. And now to go into an interesting name that the Red Sox fans don't have a ton of exposure on as a Red Sox player, but mostly for his time with the St. Louis Cardinals, is Allen Craig. So I don't know if you remember 2013, Allen Craig decided to trip over Will Middlebrooks, and it was that whole sort of controversial obstruction call, and that was the only reason that the Red Sox won that last game. And the reason I say it is the only reason, because you can say, well, what about all the other plays that happened throughout that game? Well, if Allen Craig didn't trip and he actually was called out at home, the game would have been over. The Red Sox would have won, and they would have fully swept the St. Louis Cardinals during that 2013 season. And so Allen Craig was, interestingly enough, traded to the Red Sox in 2014 for John Lackey, and the Cardinals traded with Allen Craig Joe Kelly. And so thinking about it, I remember seeing this, wow, Allen Craig has had some great seasons with the Cardinals. He's a really good, exciting player that I think would be able to fit really well with the Red Sox. But he came over and totally fell on his face. Like, he just vanished from the baseball world and struggled mightily through the first 2 months, only hitting 128 and striking out 36 times. And then he just stayed in AAA for the remainder of his time with the Red Sox until 2017. And the Red Sox decided, he's just really not doing anything for us down in the farm system. And so then they decided to release him after he played 171 games and only hitting 6 home runs with a 229 average in 2015. And so then the Red Sox wanted to go in a different direction in 2014, and this is where we get into the Hanley Ramirez era. And so that last player of Allen Craig was a little bit of just a synopsis of how that transaction really just did not work out for the Red Sox, and how there was a whole persona that he was going to be our main first baseman. And then we had to really sort of switch the script with what was going to be happening in 2014 at first base. And getting into Hanley Ramirez, he didn't start off on first base for the Red Sox. He actually has always been a shortstop or a third baseman throughout his career, and signed with the Red Sox in 2014 in a 4-year, $88 million deal. And he was announced that he was going to be playing left field. And I remember seeing this report, seeing these tweets about Pablo Sandoval going to the Red Sox and Hanley Ramirez going to the Red Sox, and everybody just being so confused of the top two third basemen are going to one team, and how are they both going to be able to fit in a depth chart and still be productive? And both of those players, in my opinion, didn't work out at all. That is one of the biggest failures that Ben Cherington had, other than the Rusney Castillo signing. But to get into really how Hanley Ramirez played for the Red Sox during his first season, he hit .249 with 19 home runs. And I actually remember him starting off that season in a absolute flame of hot. Like he was so hot at the start of his Red Sox career, hitting, I'm pretty sure he hit 10 home runs during that first month. And his defensive rating just really showed how he wasn't able to play left field. And he was the worst in defensive rating as a left fielder in the American League. And this resulted in the Red Sox announcing that Ramirez would not play left field anymore and would be switched to being the starting first baseman during the 2016 season. And so during the start of the 2016 season of spring training, Hanley Ramirez came in, big smile, ton of confidence, and I just remember seeing him in front of the press dismissing any sort of concern of him being able to figure out the first base position, saying it's not hard, it's going to be easy. I've had to overcome much harder stuff throughout my career. And you just saw it just really not work out for Hanley Ramirez at first base. He just looked very embarrassing, but his offense really started to produce. And one of his biggest moments during that 2016 season is he hit a 3-run walk-off home run to stun the Yankees after a thriller comeback. And then he also was able to help the Red Sox go on a 11-game winning streak right after that. So he actually hit 30 home runs during that season, and this became the first trio in Red Sox history to have 30 home runs and more than 100 RBIs, because he did that like Mookie Betts and David Ortiz. So those three players were the first in Red Sox history to have those amazing stats. And so Ramirez was able to finish that season with a .286 batting average with 111 RBIs, and that was a new career high for him. And I just remember after this season, I'm just like, wow, this signing is really looking up. We're paying the guy around $20 to $22 million. Is he really worth it? It really started to look very good for the Red Sox. But after this season, David Ortiz retired, and then we started to really think about and scratch our heads, who is going to be that starting first baseman and who is going to be that starting DH. And I just remember going into that offseason, hearing about all these tampering charges that David Ortiz could potentially face, for talking to Edwin Encarnacion during the All-Star game about wanting him to take over his DH position or even be able to be slotted into that first base position. And anytime Edwin Encarnacion came to Fenway as a Toronto Blue Jay, I just remember always being terrified of him walking up to that plate. Not only because he was a left-handed hitter, big guy who just had all the pull power that you could think of in a hitter. And this just shows in how he was able to belt 12 home runs 37 runs with a 296 batting average in just 44 games. And he even went on to masslive.com, had an interview, and said, I think maybe the Green Monster helps. With us pull hitters, we really have that, and having that wall right there, he says, I see the ball good here in this stadium. I love every time I come to play here, and I love to play here because I see the ball good and I enjoy it. Because I just said, he was able to hit 12 home runs in just 44 career games at Fenway. But Encarnacion decided to sign a 3-year, $60 million with the Indians just because the Red Sox weren't pursuing him really whatsoever, just from the reports that I heard during that time, just because they didn't want to pay that much money for a starting first baseman or to be able to replace David Ortiz and for it to potentially not work out. And then we saw Hanley Ramirez be slotted into that designated hitter role for the Red Sox, and this made him have the lowest batting average as he was a part of the major leagues, in a 242 slash line with 23 home runs and only driving in 62 RBIs. And Ramirez was just not able to really be able to pick up steam during that last season, and in my opinion, really throughout his entire Red Sox second stint. And this showed because he was only able to hit 260 with 78 home runs, with driving in 250 RBIs over a span of 429 games. And you just look at that signing and it's just embarrassing as a Red Sox fan, especially how it ended with him being designated for an assignment at the end of the 2018 season. And he just was not able to hit at the start of that season. During in April, he batted a 163 average, and it was just embarrassing. And just to think about all the times that the Red Sox did have to be able to trade him and just decided not to, especially for all the needs that they needed throughout these last, in my opinion, 5 seasons of relief pitching prospects. And then we even see it now. The farm system is at its 30th worst, or is the 30th in the MLB. And we could have really used anything for Hanley Ramirez. But, we decided to release him and get absolutely nothing for his services. And so now we go into the era of Mitch Moreland with the Red Sox. So Mitch Moreland played from 2017 till 2019, and he signed a 1-year contract with the Red Sox on December 2016. And I remember seeing this signing, looking at this guy coming from the Texas Rangers, and just thinking in my head, he was very productive for them over his career with them. And he was always a very good around 250 to 25 home run sort of guy that is, just able to get you that above average sort of first baseman power, but it's not overwhelming power, but he is still able to find a way to get on base and be able to help your team win. And we really saw that with him playing 149 games in 2017, hitting 22 home runs with a 246 average and driving in 79 RBIs. And this is how he got his nickname of Mitchy Two Bags, because he was able to hit 34 doubles, because of that left field wall. And we would always just see, anytime there was a guy on second, or anytime you would even see a guy in scoring position, or here's another time he would just come up clutch, is when the Red Sox were doing absolutely nothing, and he would just be able to start that inning off with a nice double and be able to really get not only the whole stadium amped, but the team just on a whole nother level of finding ways to get on base and being able to drive those runs in. And we always saw it. Mitch was the one who usually started these rallies for the Red Sox. And this prompted the Red Sox to sign him in December 2017 to a 2-year contract worth $13 million. And I just remember going into this offseason really looking at the top first basemen that were available, and guys like Carlos Santana and Eric Hosmer were looked at as great replacements at first base for the Red Sox. The Red Sox had a lot of money. They had Dave Dombrowski, who was capable and willing to spend a lot of money through his track record with the Red Sox. And guys like Carlos Santana and Eric Hosmer went out to sign $20 million deals per year. And then we turn around, like I just said, and we're able to sign Mitch to $6.5 million a year. Now, you guys are going to hear me talk a lot throughout this podcast or these different podcasts about how smart the Red Sox need to be about being able to value players and being able to not overpay these players. Because we've seen over the last few years, Pablo Sandoval, Carl Crawford, Adrian Gonzalez, David Price, just all these overpaid players that just aren't able to produce these sort of standards that this money is really giving to them. And in my opinion, Mitch Moreland was really able to get that $6.5 million to show his performance. And we were able to get a great value on a very productive player. And that showed in 2018 when Mitch Moreland was named to the MLB All-Star game as a reserve first baseman. And over the 71 games to start the season, he hit .288 with 11 home runs. And then after the All-Star break, he struggled a little bit with a .191 average and hitting 4 home runs with 47 games under his belt. But overall, he hit 15 home runs with a .245 average. So Moreland was really able to come up clutch for the Red Sox in the 2018 postseason. He appeared in 11 games, and he hit 5 for 17 with a .294 batting average. And he helped the Red Sox go on to win a World Series. And one of the most memorable moments that Mitch Moreland had throughout the postseason for the Red Sox is when he was able to come up so clutch during Game 4. I remember like it was yesterday. It was a 4-1 game, and Moreland was able to hit a 3-run home run to tie that game for the Red Sox. And I remember seeing that. I'm like, no other person I would have thought of to come up so clutch as Mitch Moreland has been able to over his Red Sox career. And it just was not a surprise whatsoever. But then during the 2019 season, Moreland was placed on the 10-day injured list with a lower back strain. And then he was activated on June 7th. And then he returned back to the injured list on June 8th with a right quad strain. And for the season, Moreland hit, in my opinion, mediocre with 91 games under his belt, hitting .252 with 19 home runs and 58 RBIs. And this was just really the whole sort of persona and definition of how disappointing the Red Sox 2019 season was. And this really goes into how Steve Pearce was able to perform in 2019. But we're going to get into first how Steve Pearce was able to really propel the Red Sox to that World Series win in 2018. So the Red Sox decided to pick up Steve Pearce during the 2018 trade deadline, and he was traded to the Red Sox by the Toronto Blue Jays. And it's interesting because through his MLB career, he has now been able to play for all 5 teams in the American League East. It's very interesting being able to play for all these different teams and being able to get all these different atmospheres. But he really did say that the one team he really wanted to play for was the Boston Red Sox. And so this move was made to be able to give the Red Sox some more versatility and power coming off that bench. And we really saw it when on August 2nd during the Yankees game, he was able to hit three home runs and lead the Red Sox to a 15-7 win over the Yankees. And he became just the 6th player to hit 3 home runs in a Red Sox-Yankees game. And during 50 games played for the Red Sox, he had a .279 average and hit 7 home runs with 26 RBIs. And while Moreland got injured during the ALDS, Steve Pearce came in during Game 4 with bases loaded and was able to hit a base-clearing double, but the inning before, he had a game-tying home run off the closer, Kenley Jansen, in the top of the 8th inning. And this really helped the Red Sox go up 8-4, and then they were able to win 9-6 during that World Series game. And then we saw it in Game 5. Pearce was able to hit a 2-run home run in the first inning off of Clayton Kershaw. And I just remember Pearce, anytime he came up during this series, it was just silent throughout the Dodgers stadium because everybody was nervous and sort of really had this persona and inkling that Pearce was going to come up clutch, because it seemed like anytime he stepped into that box during that World Series, he just had some magic in him. He was able to find that clutchness in his soul and be able to get the plays that the Red Sox really needed. It was very surprising. And so during that Game 5, he was able to hit a second home run off of Pedro Baez to help them win 5-1. And Pearce would actually become the MVP for the Red Sox, and he became the first player since Carl Yastrzemski in 1967 to hit 3 home runs in a World Series. And he joined Babe Ruth and Ted Kluszewski as the only players that are over 35 to have a multi-home run game in the World Series. And this just really helped the Red Sox have a lot of reassurance into Steve Pearce as a player, of how productive he is and how reliable he can be. And this is the reason why the Red Sox decided to sign him in early November to a 1-year, $6.25 million deal. And I just remember seeing this as a great move for the Red Sox, especially for how productive he was during that World Series, to be able to bring that band all together with the amazing culture that the Red Sox did have during that World Series, and being able to find a way to really get the back-to-back World Series that all Red Sox fans were hoping for. And so prior to 2019 opening day, he was placed on a 10-day injured list with a left calf injury, and he batted 180 through 29 games through June 1st, and then he was placed back on the injured list with a lower back strain. And Pearce didn't play for the rest of the season, and he ended the season with 1 home run, 9 RBIs in 29 games that he appeared in 2019. And like I said, that is just sort of what happened throughout last season for the Red Sox in 2019. And as a Red Sox fan, it was so disappointing really having to be on my high horse and on the top of the world after that 119 win season that we had last year, and especially for all the ups and downs that as Red Sox fans we've been dealing with through the last few years of the Ben Cherington era, and now the Dave Dombrowski era, and now really this new sort of young, exciting era with Chaim Bloom. But still, there's a lot of question marks going into this next year. If you really think about it, January is going to have to be immensely busy. And with everything that the Red Sox need to really help them get back into that excitement, contention phase that all these other teams are finding ways to be able to really bring all these very efficient players together, it just really confuses me why Chaim Bloom in the front office is sitting on their hands and really just doing nothing, in my opinion, so far to help out the Red Sox for this next season. Now, I understand it's supposed to be a bridge year. We're just trying to get under that threshold and build up this farm system. But to be able to do that, you need to make the trades to get under that threshold first of all, and we actually need to make moves to build this farm system. Like we are still the worst farm system in the MLB. And what day is it? It's the start of the year, and we have nothing going right for our farm system at the moment. And so as a Red Sox fan, it's been a very frustrating offseason so far and sort of confusing offseason so far because of all the different rumors that we've been hearing, and absolutely nothing has been going on. So I hope you guys really did enjoy this first podcast that is coming out for Bosox Talk. I'm so excited to start this journey with you guys. Let me know if any other topics or any other things that I should be talking about during these podcasts. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope everybody had a great time spending time with their families during the Christmas season, and we're able to watch some great basketball games and being able to see the Boston Celtics absolutely torch the Toronto Raptors. So my name is Jake Nazuski. This is Bosox Talk. I will see you guys next Wednesday, and hopefully Chaim Bloom and the Red Sox can start to make some moves to help this team really get a little bit better each and every single day. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'm excited to start this journey. See ya.